What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So now we are entering the month of December, which means World Juniors are right around the corner. It starts December 26th, I believe, right after Christmas. So we're a little bit over 3 weeks from the most exciting junior tournament of the season, where we get to see basically the future of the NHL on display, some of the most electric under 20 players in the entire league. And about a week ago, The Athletic released their lineup projections for the different nations in terms of the US, Canada, Finland, Sweden, and then also highlighted the other countries that'll be involved, some of the top prospects. So I thought it'd be a fun idea before they officially announce the actual rosters. Look at these projections, look who the favorites, some players that can really be X factors in this tournament, and just dive into that. So let's do Canada first. Why not do Canada first? They're the reigning back-to-back or three-time champion. Definitely back-to-back, I know that for a fact. Probably three-time. Yeah, I think three-time. So in looking at the Canadian team right now, obviously the most interesting guy on this team is Macklin Celebrini, the projected 2024 first overall pick. He's playing great at Boston University right now. I think he has like 24 points in like 14 games. He's the heavy odds-on favorite right now to be the first overall pick, and rightfully so. He just does everything at a very high level. So I think in terms of this lineup, having him play with Zach Benson and Matthew Savoie just make far too much sense, because Savoie and Benson are not just only on the Buffalo Sabres together, they played all of junior together back on the Winnipeg ice, and obviously that went on to become the Wenatchee Wild. So I think that first line, you can basically pencil it in. I can't see. I think Benson's the second or best player on the team. Celebrini's top three, and then Savoie with that. He's fantastic in his own right, but with that connection to a Benson, I think you got to staple him to that. That second line, Connor Geekie really impressed me this year. Last year, I thought he was kind of just benefiting because he also played on that Wenatchee Wild team, or the Winnipeg Ice, last year with Savoie and Benson. But Savoie has only played like 6 games. Benson has obviously not played in the WHL. And Connor Geekie's absolutely killing it right now. He has 45 points in 24 games. I was very hesitant when the Coyotes selected him. I think 11th overall. They traded like the 26th overall, the 35th, and the 42nd to the San Jose Sharks back in 2022. I think Geekie, at the time, I thought Geekie was a very talented power forward. I didn't think that he was worth a top 15, top 20 pick, but he's really progressed, so I like him on that second line. Nate Danielson's having a little bit of struggles right now. Not struggles, but he only has like 17 points in 19 games in the WHL. Not that impressive. I still like his two-way game. I would maybe switch him and Braden Yeager. That's maybe a change that I would make. Jordan Dumais, fantastic. Dumais has like 37 points in like 15 QMJHL games right now. He's only 5'8". That's why he went 96th overall, the last pick in the third round back in 2022, but led the entire I just went through all the three leagues. QMHL in scoring last year. He had like 140 points. He is insanely offensively talented. He's hopefully gonna be what the Columbus Blue Jackets thought they were getting in Johnny Gaudreau. Jordan Dumais could end up being that like that in a couple of years. On to that third line. Firkus, if he could play center. Firkus is playing fantastic. He has 24 goals, 24 assists, 48 points in just 25 games for the Moose Jaw Warriors right now with Braden Yeager. So it does make some sense why he's on that third line, but he's been so good that I probably would elevate him to that second line. Fraser Minten looked very solid with the Leafs when he did play preseason and a little bit of regular season. He's a very good player. I think he's easily going to make the team. Easton Cowan killing it in the OHL right now is something like 32 points in 20 games. I think he's pretty safely on it. Owen Beck, I can definitely see making the team. And then Denver Barkley kind of came out of nowhere. He was a third-round pick most recently this year in 2023. Has 35 points in 26 games. Moving on to the defense. The defense, I think, is probably the weakness of the team. Also goalie. But it's clear they have a very good forward core. But the defense, Denton Matachuk, I think he's eventually going to be a good top-pairing guy. He's been killing it in juniors. But besides that, Owen Pickering hasn't really taken that next step since he got drafted in the first round. Joran Donovan, I honestly don't know that much about. Tristan Lanoux, solid. Yeah, it's just a disappointing blue line for Canada when you compare it to last year. What did they have? Did they have Brant Clark, Kevin Korchinski, and I'm blanking on someone, Olin Zellweger too. Like those three guys would all be pretty easily the number one defenseman on this year's team. Well, Brant Clark isn't eligible anymore, or even Maybe Zellweger isn't either, but Kevin Korchinski would easily be the number one defenseman. No shit, he's playing at the NHL right now. But compared to previous Canadian defenses, you think of Owen Power, you think of guys like that. This is very disappointing. Denton Matachuk being your number one. Very talented player, but after that, it does fall off pretty heavily. In net, it's pretty interesting. Dom DiVincenzo. I'm going to butcher some names, by the way, on this. But Dom, he's struggling right now in the OHL. He has an 876 in 15 OHL games. This is a pretty high-scoring league, but that's not ideal. But Mathis Rousseau for Halifax Mooseheads is who he plays for. He has a 16-3-2 record with a 934. So even though I don't even think that he's he's right now the third goalie. I think right now he would be the number one goalie in my opinion, just because he's playing so good. Halifax is an absolute wagon, but when looking at that, I think he is probably going to merge the number one. And then Matthew Wood as an extra is pretty interesting. He obviously went, I think, 15th overall. I could see him definitely cracking the lineup, maybe over Denver Barkley. But overall, it's kind of a disappointing Canada team. I don't mean to be like low on them or like seem like a hater, but compared to previous years, this is not what you're used to in a Team Canada team. Some snubs that I noticed when I was making this video. No Andrew Crystal. I would have him in there over Denver Barkey or Owen Beck. Colby Barlow, what was he, 19th overall to the Winnipeg Jets or something like that. This year, great goal scorer. Carson Rakoff. He's absolutely killing it in the OHL. I think he's the league leading scorer right now, not on the roster. And then a Michael Miza. I understand that he is only 16 or 17 years old. He's going to be the 2025 first overall pick, most likely. I feel like he could make this team. I understand why get more experience, more physical players, but that kind of surprised me that he's not on it as well. Up next, we got the USA, which I think, non-biased, is the favorite right now in this tournament. The forward core is absolutely loaded. You look at it, Cutter Gauthier, fantastic at Boston College this year. Jimmy Snuggerud last year had like 50 points in 40 games. Him and Logan Cooley were probably like the best duo in all of college hockey. Rucker McGrody is going to be interesting because he did get hurt in a Michigan game most recently. I don't know how long. They said that he could come back for World Juniors, but that would be a massive loss because he really took that next step once Fantilli and Hughes left Michigan this year. He's kind of been the leader of that team as well as Seamus Casey, but we'll get to him. Rucker McGrody really took that next step, and then obviously he gets hurt. That's going to be big for the U.S. because Rucker McGrody would be like the second or third best forward on all of Canada. So that's definitely an X factor. That second line is absolutely gross. Perreault, Smith, Leonard. Perreault has 23 points in 16 games right now. Smith has 22. Leonard has 10 goals and 7 assists in 16 games. They just play so well. They were like the greatest U.S. developmental line of all time. They set all these records. Perreault set the all-time points record over Matthews. They just play so well together that, yeah, you cannot separate these guys, especially at a tournament like the World Juniors where you don't have a lot of practice time leading up to it. You get this built-in line that has been so successful at the junior and now at the college level. You don't touch that. They play so well together. Leonard's that goal scorer, physical two-way guy. Will Smith, really just a wizard with the puck. Gabe Perreault, such an effective playmaker. They're perfect. They're like that. This is going to be the best line of the tournament. I can basically pencil that in. They probably should be like the number one line. I would probably utilize them the most just because they have such an insane track record. I cannot wait to get to watch them on the international stage. Them playing one of the lower end teams, just dummying them with the chemistry that they have is going to be really fun. The third line, Isaac Howard. I was low on Isaac Howard coming into the season. He had a very disappointing season with Minnesota Duluth last year. He had 17 points in 35 games. Then he transfers to Michigan State, which is a better program, Big Ten, better competition. He has 17 points in 16 games already. So I think Isaac Howard's backtracking on the right path. He would make my team right now. Frank Nazar, also doing very good at Michigan. Gavin Brindley at Michigan as well. Maybe one thing that I would do here, I understand why McGrody's up at that first line. Maybe you bring McGrody down to that third line just because you would have the Boston College line and then the third line would be the Michigan line because obviously those three players play for Michigan. But I definitely understand why you wouldn't. McGrody is better than Nazar and Bradley by a decent. Is it Nazar or Nazar? I think it's Nazar. I think I got that right. Hopefully, once we get to Sweden and Finland, my God. But maybe you make that change, move up Isaac Howard. But I do think that a Rucker McGrody, Cutter Gauthier line, two like 6'3", 6'4" beasts is going to be very fun to watch. That's going to be fun hockey to watch. And then the last line, I wouldn't have Charlie Schrammel. He only has 1 goal in 10 games for Wisconsin right now. He has been very disappointed. And last year, he only had like 12 points in 35 games. I would take Schrammel out, and I would have Moore. Moore hasn't been fantastic at Minnesota, but I think overall he's still definitely a top 12 eligible forward. Gavin Hayes, I don't know too much about, but obviously there's a couple major snubs on this. You don't have a Cole Eiserman that's expected to go second overall this year. I can see the logic in the sense of maybe you don't think that he's right now better than anybody in the top 6 that they have right now. And Eiserman is very much a goal scorer, Ovechkin type, where he'll score your goals, but you can't expect much in terms of passing, in terms of defense. Like, don't be expecting anything. So I guess maybe the logic is if you don't think that he's going to crack your top 6 and play serious minutes, you're probably not trusting him in a bottom 6, more two-way glue guy kind of role that maybe you can trust than Isaac Howard or Frank Nazar. So I think from that standpoint, maybe it makes sense. But on my team, I think I would throw McGrody on that third line, and I would just put Eiserman with his amazing shot with Snuggerud and Gauthier. Maybe that's just me. It's definitely going to be interesting. I just can't really imagine them cutting the projected second overall pick. That would be a little bit weird. I just realized my mic's a little off. But also, James Hagans isn't on this, the projected 2025 first or second overall pick. That's a little bit more understandable. He's only like 16. You could maybe make an argument over Oliver Moore, Gavin Hayes, but again, if you're not bringing in Hagans just to play a fourth line role, so I can maybe understand that. But I think that this forward core is absolutely loaded, and the defense is arguably just as good with a guy like Lane Hudson that has 8 goals, 12 assists, 20 points in like 16 games right now. Last year he broke Brian Leach's all-time freshman points record in college hockey. Pretty decent. Also, Ryan Chesley, I think, would be a good defensive defenseman, more so defensive defenseman. He definitely has offensive talents, but he was a second-round pick in 2022 to the Washington Capitals. More of that two-way defensive kind of guy to balance out Elaine Hudson that's a lot more offensive. Seamus Casey has emerged out of nowhere right now. He has 23 points in 18 games, was kind of in Luke Hughes' shadow last year, but he's really emerged as that number 1 defenseman and has arguably been as good as Elaine Hudson. Hunter Brustevich, I did a video on him. I think I got that name right. He's absolutely exploded. He plays in the OHL, which is a little bit weird. I thought he was Canadian at first, but right now he has 46 points in 28 games for the Kitchener Rangers. He's been arguably the best defenseman in the entire Canadian junior hockey system. So his emergence has been massive for this team, considering he's your number 3 defenseman, probably behind Casey and Hudson. He would be probably the number 2. He would definitely be the number 2 defenseman on that Canada team, and he's your number 3, maybe even your number 4, because a guy like Zeev Boom has been so great as a 17-year-old in college hockey right now. He has, let me pull it up. He has 21 points in 16 games. He's going to be a top 10 pick. He's playing himself into a top 10 pick this year. Such a gifted offensive defenseman. And when you look at the production, dude, at University of Denver, one of the most elite schools, he's walked in there, became their number 1 defenseman. If he goes for 40 points as a 17-year-old freshman, that's like top 5 pick kind of production. It's really insane. I can't wait to see him. Haven't really watched him that much. Can't wait to see him at that next level. I've heard mainly only good things. And then in net, I think right now I would go Jacob Fowler. Jacob Fowler is playing at Boston College. Boston College is a wagon. Obviously, you see Ryan Leonard, Will Smith, Gabe Perreault, Cutter Gauthier there. They're like the best team in college hockey. But he's a major reason why. He was the fifth round pick by the Montreal Canadiens. He's a Montreal Canadiens guy, as you can see. And he has a 9.29 this season and a 2.04. So that's pretty decent. Trey Augustine's doing good in his own right, but he does have a 9.11 and a 3.17. I believe he plays college hockey. I forget where exactly. But I think right now Jacob Fowler would be that guy. In terms of snubs, Cam Lund's the extra forward on this. I think just Eiserman and Hagans you can make an argument for, but I do understand this forward core is so loaded that maybe or maybe you bring them as extra forwards, just bring them along for the ride. But this USA team's disgusting. I think it is the favorite right now, and I don't think I'm biased for saying that. Next up, we got Sweden. No real superstar this year for Sweden. A couple former first-round picks, second-round picks, third-round picks. Definitely a deep team. As you can see, basically everybody projected on it is NHL affiliated for the most part. The leader of this team is probably going to be Jonathan Lekkerimäki. I think I got that right. He has 9 goals in 22 SHL games. He is a pure sniper. Last year, he kind of struggled in the SHL. This year, obviously, picking it up with 9 and 22. That's a very impressive rate overall. So I think he is going to be the engine of that first line. Wouldn't surprise me if he's top 3 in the entire tournament in scoring. Ostlund was a former 16th overall pick, I believe, in 2022 for the Buffalo Sabres. He's been progressing pretty well. Liam Ogren has been out for a little bit. He's a Minnesota Wild first-round pick from last year, I think, 2022. So if he's there, that's going to be big. If Ogren isn't there to play a pretty big role on the Sweden team, then they might have a hard time contending at that next level. Suzdalev, very solid player. Bystad, former second round pick. He was like 37th overall. Otto Stenberg was a 2023 guy that I was very high on. Very skilled forward. Hasn't produced that high of a rate at the SHL right now, but I still think he's very solid. So they have a good top 6 in my opinion. It does kind of fall off after that. Anton Wahlberg could be something. David Enstrom could be solid in the tournament, but it's definitely not obviously a Canada or the U.S. That's where the big drop-off happens. On defense, it's a pretty solid defense score, though. It's probably on the same level as Canada's, if I'm going to be honest. Delius, my guy, second-round pick. He's been progressing pretty solid. I think he's actually hurt right now, but I think he is going to be back in time for the tournament. Axel Sandin Pelika is probably going to be the number 1 defenseman of this team. You look at him in the SHL this year, he has 8 goals, 4 assists. As a defenseman in 23 games, he's putting up like Erik Karlsson level of production at the same age. So I think he could really pop during this tournament. I really liked his draft tape. Such an effective skater and fast skater, and just overall has the offensive tools and more specifically the shot. It's such an accurate shot. He's obviously a smaller guy, so he's similar to Elaine Hudson. He's not rifling off slap shots at 105 miles per hour, but he has very strong shot selection and shot accuracy, which leads to those high goal scoring rates. He had something like 25 goals in Swedish juniors in like 40 games as well. It was insane. And just overall, to round it up, Elise Pettersson 2.0 was a third-round pick back in 2022. He's a solid player. Tom Olander, I think he's been pretty solid at Boston University, obviously playing behind Lane Hudson. He's not going to explode offensively. He has 8 points in 12 games. But overall, it's a pretty solid defense score. I don't know too much about the goalies, so we'll move on to Finland. I'm about to botch some names. Up first, Konsta Helenius. This kid is making a strong case for second overall in the NHL draft over Cole Eiserman. As crazy as it is, right now he has 19 points in 26 games in Liga, the Finnish men's league, and I think most of that has come most recently. He has 17 of those points in his last 19 games against grown men. He is producing at such a high rate, and again, at only 17 years old, he's going to have a real case to go second overall. I think he's really solidified himself as a top 5 pick. So skilled, so impressive to be battling against those grown men in Finland. It's not that high of a scoring of a league, and he's doing this at his age. It's similar production to a Barkov, to a Rantanen. Well, Rantanen wasn't even that high of a prospect, but to a Barkov and to a Laine. Like, it's very impressive. Joakim Kamel, struggling a little bit in the AHL this year, only has 9 points in 18 games, but last year had 13 points in 14 games. I was very high on him in the draft process. I think he's a very good two-way forward with a lot of offensive upside. Hasn't really shown in the AHL this year, but he's going to be a massive part of this team overall. Kasper Halutin, pretty solid. He made the jump over to North America. He's playing the OHL right now. He has 30 points in 26 OHL games, including 19 goals. So he's definitely... That first line is pretty dangerous. Past that, they're going to need a guy like Kasper really to step up. I looked over him, but Yanni Nyman, a 2022 second-round pick by Seattle. Right now, he has 13 goals in 21 points in 26 Liga games, so he's putting up massive production, and he's 6'3". So that first line is very scary. That is a legit first line. That is not on the same rate of a Canada or the United States, but that's a very good first line. Past that, they're going to need some help. Overall, for the defense, the only guy that was really of note is Arttu Karki. He's playing right now in the OHL, and he has 28 points in 27 games, including 16 goals for the Sioux Greyhounds. So he's pretty obviously going to be their number 1 defenseman. And then in net, the Coco guy has some Liga experience. He's played, I believe, 15 games for Karpat and has a 906 and a 2.36. So Not the strongest Finnish team, not like those teams of the mid 2010s, but still pretty solid. Still can make some noise. Going to be pretty interesting. But moving on to the overall, the rest of the countries, I think Slovakia is going to be pretty dangerous. Dvorsky, I was very high in the draft process. He's doing pretty solid, I believe, in the OHL right now. He's playing, I know this. He's playing for the same team that quit him, Sudbury Wolves. Boom! Simone Nemec, you got a guy like Philip Mezar, Gahan, oh my God, I'm botching names right now. But they're Samuel Hanzik, who went first overall in 2023. Slovakia is going to be very good. Obviously, they wanted the high-end depth, but they're going to be solid. Yuri Kulich was like tops in the entire AHL in scoring to start this year. He finally got the call-up. Edward Chalet, been pretty solid in the AHL. Adam Juracek is a guy that could be a first-round pick this year, brother of David Juracek. Switzerland, Leon Bichel, doing pretty solid in the AHL right now. I'm not too high on him. Julian Lutz for Germany. Okay, and then Latvia and Norway have some decent players. But overall, I think that it is the U.S.'s tournament to lose this year. They're obviously not the heavy favorites like maybe Canada in prior years, but I would say like there's like a 35% chance they win the tournament. I'd say Canada probably like 40% U.S., 33% Canada, 27% one of the other countries. It's definitely open. It's not like maybe previous years where the Canada and U.S. are such heavy favorites. It is a pretty wide open tournament, but I do think the U.S. is the favorite right now. But let me know in the comments. What do you think about this? What do you think about the tournament? Are you excited for the tournament? It happens in Gothenburg, I think. Sweden. So Sweden does have home ice advantage. It's the first time it's not in Canada for like 3 or 4 years because of all the COVID messing up the schedules. But let me know in the comments, what do you think about this? What players do you think are going to really excite and pop off in this tournament? And I'll see you in the next one.